Picture this. You're questing out in Red Ridge, minding your own business, having a good time, when suddenly...
Looks like that guy just killed you.
What? Why? Why?
A big dynamic to this game is the PvP, or player versus player experience. Some people play this game entirely for the PvP, other people hate it and choose to avoid it entirely. In Classic, there are technically 3 different ways to do PvP: dueling, Battlegrounds, and World PvP. We're going to talk about each fairly briefly, and finally we'll talk about the honor system. Small warning, I'm going to be referencing content phases a good bit in this video. If you don't know what those are or what I mean by that, I made a video on them that you can check out if you like, though I think it might be somewhat self-explanatory as we get into it later. Let's start with World PvP and quickly review something from episode 1 where we talked about server types. If you choose a PvP server, you'll automatically be flagged for PvP in the contested zones of the world shown here. Gaze upon this while I talk your ear out for a bit. This means that if you're going to be in any of the contested zones, any one of the opposing faction may attack you at any time, and vice versa. If you are in a zone protected by the enemy faction, however, you will be flagged, and the opposing faction is not. This means the opposing faction can choose to attack you, but you cannot attack them unless they start the fight. If you're on a PvE server, this gameplay dynamic does not apply to you. There's no right answer on what to pick as far as servers go, it's just about what you prefer. On a PvE server, you can focus on questing in peace, but on a PvP server, you get an added dynamic to your questing experience. Seeing someone of the opposite faction means a lot more on a PvP server. Personally, I think it's a core dynamic to the game, and I love World PvP. And trust me, this is coming from someone who's leveled both a prot paladin and an arms warrior. They're hard to level in the first place. Yes, getting ganked by really high level players sucks, especially getting camped, but the satisfaction of winning fights in World PvP outweighs it for sure in my book. Also, starting in the second content phase, we'll begin earning honor for our kills in World PvP, accruing rank. More on that in a bit. The next type of PvP is duels. Dueling allows you to fight people of your own faction regardless of the server you're on. You can duel anywhere but inside capital cities. You don't kill your opponent, you only put them down to 1 health, and you do not get honor for fighting. Dueling is just for fun and practice. The nice thing about dueling is that it's in a controlled environment in which you can practice and hone your skills. It's common courtesy to agree with your opponent beforehand as to if crafted consumables are allowed to be used, which they usually are, or if buffs that your class cannot cast are allowed to be used on yourself, which they usually are not. People really like dueling. You'll often see it happening outside capital cities. In fact, on the Classic WoW beta servers, there was a dueling tournament hosted by Tips Out Baby and some others on the Horde side. Lots of VODs from that event, in a link in the description, some really extraordinary players there. And now for the holy grail of PvP, Battlegrounds. Well, aside from arenas, because those were introduced in the first expansion, Burning Crusade, but that's beside the point. Battlegrounds are PvP game modes that you queue up for by talking to a battle master in one of your capital cities, or by going to the respective instance portals in the open world. In the third content phase, we get Warsong Gulch and Alterac Valley, the first 2 Battlegrounds. Warsong Gulch is a 10v10 Horde vs Alliance capture the flag style game mode. You must be at least level 10 in order to play, and in interest of fairness, there are level brackets, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, etc., with level 60 being its own bracket. The map is almost entirely symmetrical. You fight each other until one team scores 3 flag captures. You cannot capture the flag if your flag is not in your base, and whenever you die, you'll be teleported to your faction's spirit healer, whereby you do not have to run back to your corpse, but instead wait for the spirit healer to fully revive you and your fellow teammates who have died, and this happens every 30 seconds. Pre-made groups who play Warsong Gulch often have some pretty deep strategies, and I am by no means a PvP expert, but here's an oversimplification of what you can expect from a successful team. You'll have 2 main groups, offense and defense. Offense takes the enemy's flag and returns their own flag. Defense protects their own flag and protects their flag carrier. The usual composition is a handful of DPS, either 5 to 6, with specific jobs, be it for sheer damage or specifically for CC, 3 or 4 healers, 1 in offense, 1 in defense, and 1 mobile healer flexing between the 2 groups, and a flag carrier, almost always a feral druid due to their mobility and survivability, though paladins and warriors are not terrible. That's about all the advice I can give you there. In the same content phase as Warsong Gulch, we also get Alterac Valley, a huge 40v40 Horde vs Alliance battleground. It's a tug-of-war style map where the Horde and Alliance fight for control of small bases and nodes, pushing their control and respawn points further down the map to eventually kill the enemy leader, a level **** elite NPC. This battleground allows anyone from level 50 to 60 to participate, and these games can last from 1 hour up to a day or two. By the way, there are tons of NPCs on this map as well that offer quests within the battleground setting for reputation and currency to buy some really awesome gear. Alterac Valley isn't exactly as competitive as, say, Warsong Gulch, but it's definitely a fun and massive battle. That's not to say that there's no strategy. In fact, I read a really awesome guide to constructed world PvP on the Barons.chat forums. Link in the description. I feel like if you really want to get into Alterac Valley and succeed, this will give you a great idea as to what kind of strategies to use and things to look out for. In content phase number 4, we get our third battleground, Arathi Basin. Arathi Basin is a 15v15 conquest-style game on a map with 5 bases for your team to capture. Like Warsong Gulch, Arathi Basin has level brackets starting from 20 to 29, 30 to 39, etc., with 60 having its own bracket. Each team must capture and hold bases by channeling a 10-second cast on the flag of the base. After you capture the base, if it was previously held by the enemy team, there's a small window for the enemy team to recap the base instantly. Now it will start generating points for your team, and the first team to 1500 points wins. Again, as I am no BG expert, take what I say with a giant grain of salt, but the strategies and roles in Arathi Basin will be quite different compared to Warsong Gulch. In order of importance, the 5 bases are named Blacksmith, Lumber Mill, Farm and Stable, and Gold Mine. Their priority is due to their accessibility and visibility of the rest of the map. The roles are much more flexible in Arathi Basin, but most of the fighting happens between the Golden Triangle, Blacksmith, Lumbermill, and Farm or Stable. Usually you'll keep a druid or a rogue on a point to make sure it doesn't get backcapped, and you'll have mages briefly camp graveyards with CC in order to delay the enemy team, but other than that, the big focus of this battleground is lots and lots of team fighting. Okay, so what's the big pull for PvP anyways? Is it really just that fun? Why do people do it? Well, I think PvP on its own is fun. Like I said earlier, one of my favorite things about Classic WoW is the world PvP. But the main and internal incentive to do PvP is to get honor. There are 14 honor ranks, and the higher rank, the harder it is to attain. You get honor points by killing the enemy faction in open world, killing them in BGs, completing a BG, you get even more honor if you win it, and completing various objectives in the battleground, such as capturing a flag in Warsong Gulch or capturing a base in Alterac Valley. Whenever you complete a battleground, you'll also get marks, an item that goes into your inventory. If you win, you get 3. If you lose, you get 1. You turn in these marks to a repeatable quest NPC, usually located right next to the place where you queued up, and they'll reward you with some money, reputation, and honor. The higher your level, the better the rewards you're going to get from that turn-in. Now, honor is not calculated very, shall I say, intuitively. Basically, what you need to know is that you get honor points, and every week on server maintenance day, which is usually a Tuesday, your weekly standing will be calculated. Your rank requires more than just getting X amount of honor, though. It also depends on the honor points of the other people in your faction on your server. Every week, you also lose a percentage of your overall honor, making it harder and harder to rank up depending on how high your rank is. I'm not going to get too far into the specifics and the statistics and all that stuff. Check the description for a link to a really good video by Stay Safe, who goes over it very thoroughly. The most important thing is that the higher the rank you have, the more access to certain gear and things you get. Go to an honor vendor in your capital city and take a look for yourself. In the travel section, we talked about how at rank 3 you get a 10% mount discount. In fact, it's a faction-wide discount for all items from all NPCs. A big important thing to look into is getting your PvP trinket as well. If you're on a PvP server, I highly suggest doing enough PvP in either open world or BGs just to get this trinket. This trinket helps you remove certain crowd control effects that your class's spell kit normally cannot. And you only need rank 2. At the end of the day, for me, it's about the lifetime honorable kills. I want to see that number as high as possible. That's the satisfaction for me. That and the trinket and the discount are pretty nice. So that about covers PvP. If you want an easygoing questing experience and you only want to do PvP via dueling and Battlegrounds, roll a PvE server. But if you want the world of Azeroth to feel even more dangerous, then I guess I'll see you on a PvP server. I just hope for your sake you're rolling Horde.